Hi, and welcome back to season 2 of the Digestible Podcast. I'm Staci,
And I'm Melissa.
and here at the Digestible Podcast, we give you all the health and wellness information you need in an amount of time that your busy day can handle, and we make it easily digestible. Get it? So we're back from vacation, right, Miss?
Yeah, we survived. We did it.
We survived 17 people, one rental house in
Yes.
Three Oaks, Michigan. Is that where we
Three
were?
Oaks, Michigan. And oh, by the way, has the cutest downtown. If anyone's looking for a cute little resort town, like touristy town near a lake.
Super cute.
Oh my gosh.
And we escaped with only a severely chipped tooth, one bee sting, and one field mouse that was let into the kitchen by an open door, probably blaming a child for that. So we mostly
Yes.
came out unscathed.
Yes. Although if you ask the child with the chipped tooth, she wouldn't necessarily agree with that one, but she's better
Yes.
now. They
Yeah.
fixed it.
That was traumatic. Anyway,
It was.
so much for family vacation memories.
Yeah. No, it was a good time. It was a good time.
Anyways, we're a little off topic.
Yes. But I'm excited we're back to talk about something so lovely, which is the science and practice of forest bathing.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which does not mean you are taking the rubber ducky and a towel into the forest.
Right. And this is not a hippy dippy thing. This is backed by science, which is why I'm so glad we have Gayle Byck on as our first guest to talk about this topic, because she really does know the science.
She does. So, Gayle Byck has her PhD in public health and is a certified forest therapy guide, as well as a board certified patient advocate and certified senior advisor. Her businesses are In Tune with Nature and In Tune Health Advocates. And we are so lucky to have her on the show today to explain to us all what we need to be doing in nature. And the timing is perfect because it's summer.
Yes, it's a good time to go and try it out for yourselves if you haven't already.
So enjoy the show. Hey, Gayle, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Staci. Hi, Melissa. Thank you.
So, Gayle, we're so excited to have you here today. Will you tell us a little bit about how you became interested in forest bathing?
I would love to. So, I started getting into nature maybe almost 20 years ago. I went to Yosemite National Park on a vacation, and I just couldn't get over how good I felt being there. I just felt this total sense of calmness and peace. And I also felt really re-energized. And so my husband and I started doing trips every summer where we'd go somewhere out west, somewhere like really heavy nature oriented. And maybe about 6-ish years ago, I learned about forest bathing, and it's got like a funny name and it sounds kind of weird sometimes. So I just kind of brushed it off. But 2.5 years ago, my dad died. And my daughter was getting married 2 months later. It was a super stressful time in my life. And I decided to go out to Utah to this place that I love. And I met my best friend from college out there. And as we pulled up to the resort and looked out at the state park in the background, I literally physically felt the stress leaving my body from head to toe. I would say that when I got there, my shoulders were like up here. I was just holding so much tension in, and like they dropped, 8-10 inches. And I just felt this total sense of peace. And I turned to my friend and I said, I'm going to go ahead and get trained in this forest bathing. Like there's really something to nature and what it does for us. And that was my big, epiphany to get me to this point.
Did you grow up around a lot of nature? What was your upbringing like?
I really didn't. I grew up in the Detroit suburbs. And while here in the Chicago area, we are so lucky to have so many forest preserves and to be right here by Lake Michigan, we get a lot of nature for being in an urban, suburban area. Detroit wasn't like that. I think my only connection to nature was I went to overnight camp. And there I honestly tried to avoid going on the hiking trips. As a little kid. So it really came to me as an adult.
Can you explain a little bit about what is forest bathing?
So forest bathing it started in Japan in the 1980s. And in Japanese, it's called Shinrin Yoku, which just means forest bath. And they started it there because they have a very high-tech, high-stress work culture, as you could say we do too in this country. And they were seeing a lot of negative health implications from that. So some people got together, designed this forest bathing program, because there's actually a structure to it, and there's a whole philosophy behind it. And they just started doing it there. And it slowly started spreading around the world. In Japan, they actually have designated forest bathing trails where when you get there, I don't know about if this is every day, but depending on what research is going on, there'll be people there who will ask, can I take your blood pressure? Can I measure your heartbeat? Can we measure your cortisol levels? Cortisol measures stress, and whatever else they're studying. And then you go off in the trail for a couple hours and you come back and they ask you if they can measure all those things again. And guess what? Everything goes in the right direction. Your blood pressure lowers, your heart rate decreases, your cortisol levels go down, everything's doing what it should be. And then they've followed people over time, and those effects can last for a week or more. So in this country, if you have high blood pressure, your doctor's probably going to give you a prescription. In Japan, your doctor might give you a prescription to go out into nature for 2 hours every week. And so they're just using it in more of a holistic health way. And there's examples all over the world where other countries are really using nature, and not just forest bathing. I mean, and gardening can work. There's so many things that we can just do if we get outside more that helps us and can help us reduce, our medication use, just be healthier. And the mental health benefits seem pretty obvious, right? I'm sure you guys have gone out on walks in the woods or by the lake or wherever, and you just feel more relaxed. You feel better. Maybe the rest of your day goes better. So there's certainly the mental health benefits of reducing anxiety, depression, stress, sleeping better, although I like to say that part hasn't hit me yet, but I'm hopeful. Improving your mood and creativity. But there's researchers at top universities around the world looking at the physical health benefits of forest bathing and just spending time in nature. The trees release something called phytoncides, and you can think of phytoncides as like the essential oils of the tree. And what the phytoncides do for the trees is protect them from disease and from pests. But when we go out into the woods and we breathe those phytoncides in, they activate our immune system. So they activate our natural killer cells. So there are people studying, can this be protective against cancer, against cardiovascular health issues? There's so much interesting work going on around this. Staci knows my younger son, and she'll probably laugh when I say he refers to it as mom's latest hippy dippy thing. But it's not. Like, there are neuroscientists at Harvard, Stanford, every top university around the world studying what nature does to our minds and our bodies. And it's all really very positive. So there's so much we can gain from it, and it'll require a bit of a mind shift in this country because it's not like built into what we're doing the way it is in Japan or in the Scandinavian countries, where they have a concept called, I gotta take a breath before I say it so I say it right, friluftsliv, which is just the joy of outdoor living. And it's built into their culture. It doesn't matter that it's cold. People, something like 80% of people in those countries spend like an hour or more outdoors every day. In our country, Americans spend about 93% of their time inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
So we can get benefits just from a casual walk in the woods or going to the beach. We get health benefits. But when you're leading a group, because you do lead groups on forest bathing adventures, yes. What happens with the group? And is it different? Are there different benefits to be had from the group versus just like my walk at the beach every week?
So I would say that at any kind of time in nature, benefits you. With the groups, what we do is we start with an overview of what forest bathing is and about some of the benefits of it. And then I lead people in a guided meditation, which is very much focused on awakening each of our senses. So I'll go through sight, hearing, touch, smell, all these things, and you're just kind of ready. Because really what the bath is, it's a bath for your senses. You're immersing your senses in nature. So that really just gets you more like in the mood. You've calmed down before you started the walk. And then we have a series of invitations to wander out and notice something. So I'll lead into every invitation with a poem or a quote or a story. And then the invitations focus on one of our senses. So there's the 5 senses we're all familiar with, but we also have imaginal sense and a heart sense. So the first invitation usually will focus on sight. Well, think about it. When you go for a walk in the woods, you're often doing it as exercise, or you're walking with a friend and you're talking and you're not really noticing what's around you. And so the forest bathing is really a slow-paced walk. So just slow down, be mindful, and notice. So an example, and Staci, you did this, of a sight invitation would be to wander out and notice the tiniest details you can see. And I'll even give magnifying glasses. And all of a sudden, everyone is looking at nature in a way that they've never seen it before. You're looking at the insides of flowers. You're looking at the cobwebs, which I would be horrified to have one in my house, but when I see them out in the woods, I find them absolutely beautiful. They're so intricate. It really gives you a sense of awe, right? At what nature creates and what we can see out there. And it just helps you be more in the moment. I had someone tell me that she's been taking art classes, and she realized from the walk that what she was missing was attention to detail. She never paid attention to the little details, and this helped her think about it in that way. So it slows you down and helps you notice and get connected to what's around you. So at the end of each invitation, we'll have, like, depending on the time frame, maybe 10 to 15 minutes to wander out and notice these things. And then we come back and we have a sharing circle. And you don't have to, first of all, it's an invitation, not an order. I always tell people, if this doesn't resonate with you, it's your time. Do whatever works for you. And same thing with sharing. You can share, you cannot share. And sometimes people will make, more basic observations like, oh, I noticed that, the leaves are all different colors, or they feel differently. But sometimes people will make really insightful comments that connect nature to their life or to the world around them. For example, I took a group of women on a walk recently, and we had an invitation to go out and find a tree that's calling to you and really spend time with that tree and think about it. So that was more the imaginal sense. These were people who had done the forest bathing before. And one of the women came back and she said, I was really looking at this tree that was so bent over. It was weighed down. It was almost like coming out of the ground in a sense. And the tree next to it seemed like it was holding it up. She said, and I realized that I'm struggling with something so intense and I'm feeling like I'm going to break because I haven't asked my people, my support network for any help. And I'm going to go home and call my best friend and tell her what I'm dealing with. And then she can hold me up the way that other tree is holding up that tree. So that's an example of really kind of how just looking at nature and thinking about it and how it works can impact us in positive ways.
I
so
love that
the sharing's
story.
all over the place. And then at the end, remember it started in Japan. So at the end we have a tea gathering. And the tea gathering is really about gratitude and about understanding our reciprocity with the earth. And so, we talk a little bit about gratitude. I've got a couple of nice gratitude quotes I share, and I ask people, to share what they're thinking. And it's really just a nice time to debrief and relax at the end. And nobody ever wants to leave. They just they just feel so chill, and they want to just sit there and like take it in and not go back to the rest of their day.
Well, is this something that someone can come and do with you like every weekend? Do you have like regular classes? How do you do it? And how
I
long are they?
generally schedule it with like a group or a business or an organization,
Mm,
or sometimes libraries will, hire me to do something. I haven't done just individual signups yet.
okay. That sounds
So,
wonderful. That really
yeah.
sounds nice. Um,
And it's just it's nice and relaxing. And, the ideal is to get out there for a couple hours, but if you have 10 minutes, go outside and
yeah.
walk around the neighborhood or just sit in your backyard. There's a concept called sit spot. So just like go out and like choose a spot that's easy for you to get to, your backyard, and sit there for 10 minutes every morning and see how it affects the rest of your day, the kind of mood it puts you in. One of the young moms who came to one of my programs, and she came with her work team, her boss had treated all of them to this experience, and she said, this has made me realize that if I could get outside for 10 minutes before I wake up my kids to get them ready for school and get myself ready for work, that I think that whole morning craziness would just go so much calmer because I would be calm,
Mm,
and like the day would just get off to a better start. Which
right.
also made me think, what if businesses started their day like everyone gets 10 minutes to sit outside or to sit by a window where there's a tree out there, or in the middle of the day you have your 10-minute sit spot break, and like everyone would just maybe be a little more patient, maybe be more creative. Oftentimes when I'm taking work teams out at the end, they're like brainstorming about ideas of what they can do, business wise, that will help them. So it just gives you a different perspective
I
to
love
just
that
really
so
sit.
much. I have to say, I used to be good about getting out for like a little walk during my workday, and I've gotten bad where I just want to like get through my work. But I think you're motivating me to at least go do a 10-minute sit spot somewhere, in
Mm-hmm.
the backyard of work.
I
I
um
remind
Yeah.
I
myself.
walk. I lift 3 days a week, and then the days I don't lift with my husband, I walk. But I find that whenever I know my next day is a walk day, I get really excited. Like I can't wait for my walk. But also something I've been doing, because it used to be like I would use that time to listen to my favorite podcast or listen to a book,
Mm-hmm.
is I'm taking the first 15 to 20 minutes of my walk to not have any sound in my ears except what's around
Yes.
me. And I'm listening to things like birds. How many different types of birds can I
Mm-hmm.
hear? And things like that. And I'm wondering if I'm getting, because I walk in the street or sidewalk in my neighborhood, and I have like a certain route I just do every day, so I'm not thinking about it. Same route. There's mature trees because I live in a neighborhood that's probably like 60 or 70 years old. And so the trees are big and there's beautiful canopies. And I'm wondering if, although the forest bathing sounds amazing and very different, I think transformational almost, like it sounds like it takes you somewhere else and connects you to your brain in a way that you don't usually connect to. But for me, like on the daily, it helps just relax me as far as like I can think more clearly. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, like, I'm wondering if I'm getting some of the benefits just walking through my neighborhood because I'm near the trees and I'm listening to the sounds and it helps me.
Absolutely.
But the forest bathing might be different because I still have my phone with me,
Right.
right? And I still see cars go by, and I'm wondering if the forest, just because one of the things that I've heard, and tell me if you do this with your customers, are they supposed to leave their phones behind and their
I
watches?
ask them to make sure their phone is off or on silent. Um,
Okay.
I'm sure you guys know there's like nothing worse than being in the middle of a meditation and someone's phone starts ringing.
Right.
But again, there's no rules. Like I'll encourage people, when you go out to do this invitation, try not to talk. But sometimes, you go with friends and people talk. So I'm not policing any situation. Like you get out of it what you want to. But I would say that yes, walking in your neighborhood, like walking in the forest to me is the best. But not everyone has access to that. I walk in my neighborhood all the time, and there's cars, and the train goes by, and what the lawnmower noise, whatever, but it's still, you're training yourself to tune out those things. Even when I do the forest bathing programs, here I am in suburban Chicago, and we're lucky to have all these forest preserves, but there's not a single place that I found where I can't hear traffic.
Right.
And sometimes you're hearing
here.
an ambulance going by, and sometimes you're hearing the airplanes. And one time, there were some workers taking down an outdoor brick kiln in the middle of my meditation.
Oh, man.
Throwing bricks into a bucket. And you know what I tell the people, and this is something that I've had to learn myself because I wasn't so good at this, is that like we need to just accept whatever the situation is. Okay, so yes, there's the lawnmower noise, but we're going to learn to tune this out, and we're still just going to go with it because we have to. I can't find a spot here where we're not going to have any noise. So it's about just learning that patience with it and learning to just kind of tune out what doesn't work for you.
I will say we go to the beach almost every week, and you can get noise free. Sometimes you'll hear like an airplane, but
yeah,
we're pretty far away from any traffic at that point.
Yeah, I love that you and your husband do that, Staci, you and Sean. That's amazing every weekend.
Yeah, so that is a great spot. I do try to go for more like woodsier spots, but yes, that's probably the most quiet spot in our area.
Yeah, just get the waves, which is very soothing.
If you're someone that appreciates the benefits of it, but certainly hasn't started doing anything like this, doesn't live in a suburban neighborhood, maybe lives in a city, what do you suggest how someone could start?
You just need one tree or one plant. And I've done this indoors. So
yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so like, you can find nature anywhere. So indoors, I'm also a private patient advocate, and I've worked with a lot of older adults, including people with dementia. And those people certainly can get outside, but sometimes we're trying to do things when the weather's not good. And while we could push ourselves on really hot or cold days, what people who are older who have illnesses, that's tough. So I've done programs where, we're inside. I have a nature video going on a screen. I bring in a diffuser I like the cypress oil smell and just trying to bring some ambiance. And then I bring a whole table full of stuff that I've collected. Pine cones, leaves, rocks, sticks, flowers, anything from outside. And I have a whole display. And we still do a meditation, but it's more of a visualization to imagine yourself walking in a forest or in a garden or whatever. And then we'll have time, like the invitation is to wander around the table and explore things, to touch. I'll bring in my essential oils so they can still smell things, and we'll touch things. And then we might make a nature mandala, which is a really meditative activity. It's like a mandala is a circular pattern, and people can work together or alone. And so the working together builds social connections. I was working with an adult day program, which is people with dementia. And one guy looks at me and he goes, "I'm a military man. I don't know what the heck this is all about." And the guy next to him said, "I'll help you." Aww. And they made a mandala together, and they were laughing. And so they made a connection, and the guy who offered to help said to me, he said, "This has made me remember my childhood home and the trees that I could see outside of my bedroom window." And his face was glowing. He had the biggest smile. And when you're working with people with dementia, it's all about those moments of joy. And so, I helped him to connect to a long-term memory and made him happy. And so it was a good day for him.
Nice.
So I do this inside. I've done it on a patio at a senior center. You can do it anywhere. Again, I love doing it in the forest, but I've done it in lots of different places.
Years ago, I got a book on garden design because that's my undergraduate degree is in landscape architecture. And the foreword of the book was by a man who told a story that he was visiting his mother, and she was in a senior home, and she had I don't know if she had dementia or Alzheimer's. So there were a lot of times he would go visit her and she didn't remember him. And one time on the way there was a flower stand on the side of the road. So he pulled over and he got some lilacs for her, thinking he could bring her flowers. And by the time he got to the senior home, they had sort of wilted, but he brought them in with him anyway. And he brought them in the room, and because the smell was very powerful, she could smell it. She could smell them. And all of a sudden, she started to talk about how when she was a child, there were lilacs outside her home, and she recognized him. And he said that he had learned that after that experience, that your olfactory senses are connected to your memory center in your brain. So I'm sure there's more than just olfactory senses. I'm sure there's visuals and things that help.
Sure, and the touch, the sensory stimulation is so important. I mean, for everybody, right? We all need touch to thrive. We need good touch. And when people are older, they're not well, maybe they have a caregiver, they're not getting a lot of good touch, right? The touch they get is someone's bathing them. But they're not doing it, they're doing it as their job, right?
Yeah.
They're changing them, they're dressing them. Those aren't good touches. But when you bring in nature and you're saying, like, touch these leaves, touch the flowers, touch the sticks, the rocks, you know, that's good touch. And we need that. Our bodies and our minds need the sensory stimulation. And the smells, I brought in, I'm not someone who's expert in aromatherapy, but from one of my sessions, I brought in a lot of the essential oils, and we were passing them around and smelling things, and everybody's alertness level went up dramatically after smelling some of these things. So they really do impact your brain, and they make you more alert, the smells, and they can also calm you and connect to the memory. You know, I have a client who's in memory care, and I was visiting her yesterday, and we were out on the patio. And the last few times, like, we like to walk around and look at all the flowers, and they have some garden beds where they're growing herbs and tomatoes and other vegetables and things. And, like, we touch them and we smell them. And I can see that she's, like, you know, getting a little peppier after we do that.
Amazing.
So,
that's really nice. I have a question going back to Japan, where this all started. So when the Japanese go on these prescribed forest baths and they are maybe having their vitals taken before they go, are they instructed on, like, you know, the touching and the hearing and the smelling and the looking, or do they just know to walk slowly through the woods and do this?
I'm honestly not sure
how
it works on those, you know, dedicated forest bathing trails. So, like, you know, I would guess a lot of them are going with guides. You know, and you can do this alone. The reason to go with the guide is someone can, like, lead you in the meditation, and they might make suggestions for you to notice things that you wouldn't have thought of before. And I also like, you know, I've had groups where not everyone knew each other, and at the end they're exchanging phone numbers because they made some kind of connection with each other. And
that must feel good.
You know, and maybe it's social or maybe it's business, you know, but, like, they're exchanging information and really, like, connecting with people. So that's a nice bonus of it.
I mean, I really did like when I did forest bathing with you that one time. I walk in the woods, not, you know, pretty much like on the regular, and it was like the stopping. And, like, I remember at one point we all found a different place to sit down and just close our eyes and listen. And that was really nice because I don't think that we remember to stop and just listen.
Right. And Melissa, as you were saying earlier about, like, not listening to a podcast, but listening to the birds, that's so important and powerful because, right, usually, like, our phones are with us all the time. So I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to call a friend. But there's something so wonderful about listening to the birds singing or listening to the leaves rustling in the wind. That's part of the calming effect. That's part of what is good for our brains, to just, you know, slow down.
Yeah. And I just remember thinking the first time I did it wasn't that long ago, because I was always had something in my ear. I was just so, I I was at a high level of agitation and stress, thinking about the day or something, life gets crazy. And I was like, I can't calm down. And my walks calm me. So I'm just going to turn everything off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, this is really nice. I need to do this more. Like
Yeah.
what I get from that walk is so much more valuable than whatever entertainment I was getting listening to whatever I was listening to. So,
Totally.
You have to realize like quiet is me time. Like,
Totally. And
know,
it reminds me of back in January. It was a really cold day here, as most days are in January. And I woke up and I hadn't slept well and I was really incredibly cranky about something. And I layered up and I went outside and I thought, I'm just going to go out for 10 minutes. And I walked over to this park near me where there's like a little creek. And I just looked into the water and there were like 8 or 9 ducks swimming around, having the time of their life. And I just started smiling. And like it changed my whole mood. It changed my whole day as I walked back. And this was just, this was a short walk. I walked back and I was smiling. I had more of a bounce in my step. I could feel like the sun shining on my face. Like everything changed.
yeah.
And there's a woman I know in California who calls herself an eco-gerontologist, and she talks about these moments of awe, or like awe walks, AWE, awe. And that was it. That was a moment of awe. Like I just was in awe of these ducks
It's
swimming
wonderful.
around,
And maybe your whole day was different.
it changed my whole day. I know that it did because I was just so cranky before
Yeah.
I went. And
Right.
so that's part of what you're asking about. Like if you're in an urban area, it's just finding something to be in awe of. She did this video where she was in a grocery store parking lot and she found a tree and she just did this whole video. Like the tree, it still brings you a sense of awe. And if you can learn to look for those things and see things in that way, just find the beauty wherever you are, even in the grocery store parking lot.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
And an interesting story kind of related to that is the Portland, Oregon airport did a major renovation last year and they put over 70 huge trees in the airport.
Oh,
Because is that not one of the most stressful places that we go to, the
yes.
airport? And like
That's
just trying to
amazing. What a great
to
idea.
bring
Yeah.
right, bring that sense of calm. Let people go and sit by a tree and maybe like take the temperature down a bit.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
So much good information that you shared.
And
with
there's
us today.
studies that if you're in the hospital and your window looks out at a
Yes,
tree
I've heard
and
this.
not the brick wall,
You
your
feel
length
better.
of stay is short. You feel better, you go
Yeah,
home
your
sooner.
stay shorter. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Or
Should
even
we-
like they should have the TVs running nature video. They should have like a nature station.
Right, that moment of
Yeah,
zen. that
I
some
don't
of the-
disagree with that. I think that's awesome. Yeah. People will
Yeah.
do that when they Peloton. Some people Peloton with the view of like as if they were
Mhm.
riding their bike through the trees, the forest,
Yes.
or
Yes.
two-lined highway or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So, Gayle, we like to ask all of our guests 2 questions. The first one is, if you could give our listeners an assignment or a takeaway from today's conversation, what would it be?
I would encourage people to try this out. And I mean, obviously it'd be great to try it out with me, but like just get outside. Go outside. Don't listen to anything. Don't talk to anyone. Put your phone on silent and just, even if it's 10 minutes, go try it out and see how you feel. And then, try it for a few days in a row.
I'm going
Great.
to do that sit spot thing. I thought that was a great.
It was funny when it was homework as part of my forest therapy guide training course, and we had to like keep a journal about it. And at first, it's really hard in your backyard because you're like, "Wow, I got to pull those weeds." Or,
Yes.
that shrub doesn't look so good, and you keep seeing all the things you have to do. And it took a few times before I was able to just really relax and not look at what needed to be done. So it's an interesting experiment.
All right. And our last question is, hopefully you're familiar with it. Here at the Digestible Podcast, we like to say, don't panic, just pivot. Can you share with us a change that you have made in your life that you're proud of?
So I think pushing myself to go out inside when it's cold has been a change that has come from this. I've often been kind of a wuss when it comes to the winter outdoors, but I've completely changed that because there is no bad weather, there's just bad clothes. So if you dress right, you can get outside. And then also the concept I talked about earlier, where just kind of learning to tune out the noise and not let it affect your experience.
That's
I love
great.
that. That's great.
Thank you.
Gayle,
Yes.
thank you so much for
All
your
right,
time.
thank you guys.
This was so great. Thank you for listening to the Digestible Podcast with our guest, Gayle Byck, PhD and Certified Forest Therapy Guide. We hope you'll give forest bathing a try, and if you do, let us know. We would love to hear how it went. My 12-year-old thought we should name the episode My Mom is Hippy Dippy and It's Science. Sorry, Maya, but thanks for your input. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please share us with others. It's the best compliment you can give us. Feel free to reach out with any questions or comments. We would love to hear from you. And remember, don't panic, just pivot. The content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not medical professionals, and the views expressed here are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any health conditions. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any health-related decisions.